Hi folks, I'm Hector Garcia, accountant and QuickBooks consultant. The purpose of this video is to get you really comfortable with using QuickBooks Online. The video is about an hour and a half, about an hour and 20 minutes, and it's my attempt to shorten one of the most popular videos I have in my channel, which is a 2-hour tutorial of sort of A through C on how to get through with QuickBooks Online. This video was recorded in the middle of 2020. So of course, if you're watching this in the future, there might be some little things here and there that change, and make sure you subscribe to the channel because any updates, major updates to QuickBooks Online, I will make videos to update this one. You also want to check out the description because I did an entire timeline of this video so you can skip to any specific topics that you need to, because I know it's a long video and some of you will be kind of stopping and playing and watching this in pieces. However, the way the video is set up, it's going to be a little bit fast in terms of the way I speak, but you can pause and follow along in another screen if you want to set up a brand new account just so you can follow along. If you already set up an account and you've already gone through the entire first account setup process, you can just skip that. I'll put the minutes and seconds here below somewhere. You can skip straight to that and we can go straight to the setup process of QuickBooks. If you haven't set up the new account yet and you're going to do that now, then let's get started. Okay, let's go through the new account setup and sign up process and kind of explain all the different versions of QuickBooks Online that are available so you can choose before you create a new account. Now, most people go to QuickBooks.com to create their new QuickBooks Online account or to create the free trial, which you can do, but I'm recommending that if you're watching this video and you have not set up a new account yet, use my link. My link will give you a 50% discount for 12 months. So I'm a big time reseller and recommender and influencer in the QuickBooks world. So I have access to special deals, and this is one of the deals that I can give to my YouTube followers. So use that link to get 50% discount. Do your research, and I almost guarantee you that's going to be the best deal in town regardless. So whatever prices I'm talking about now, I'm going to talk about the retail pricing, and as of mid 2020, right? If you're watching this in the future and the prices go up or they change, obviously I can't control that. Let's start with Simple Start. Simple Start is $25 a month. It allows you to do invoices, receive payments, do your banking, manage your expenses, estimates, sales tax, track mileage, and of course, basic financial reports. QuickBooks Online Simple Start is limited to one user. So if you have more than one person that need to access QuickBooks Online, you can't. Right? It's only for one user. Next level up is QuickBooks Online Essentials. It's currently $40 a month. And the additional functionality that Essentials adds over Simple Start is one, you can track bills. That means you can track your accounts payable. So you're not only tracking the money coming in, you're also tracking the money that you expect to be coming out. So all your future bills, future payouts that you expect to make, you can track them in Essentials. It's a very fundamental thing in accounting, is being able to track your accounts payable or the money that you're going to pay in the future. In addition to that, you can track time. So it's got a time tracker, so you can track your activities, how much time you're spending in work or your employees are spending in the work. And lastly, it bumps it up to 3 users. So now you can have maybe the owner of the company and 2 other employees accessing all QuickBooks at the same time. The next version is QuickBooks Online Plus. QuickBooks Online Plus bumps the users from 3 to 5, so you can have a little bit more users accessing QuickBooks Online. It also gives you the ability to create unlimited report-only users and unlimited time tracking users. So if you have more than 5 people that need to log into QuickBooks only to look at a report or only to track time, you can do that with the Plus edition. In addition to that, with QuickBooks Online Plus, you get access to a whole bunch of additional management reports. You get access to tracking inventory, to creating purchase orders, which are essential for managing inventory. You can also track class and location tracking, which gives you another dimension of data to create reports for. We'll do an example of that a little bit later on. And finally, gives you the ability to track job profitability, probably one of the most valuable features in Plus as compared to the other two is to be able to track your expenses by customer, expenses by job, expenses by project, and you can see which jobs, which projects you are more profitable or less profitable in, so you can maybe make decisions in the future about what jobs you want to take and jobs you don't want to take. So that job profitability tracking, it's only available in Plus or higher editions like Advanced. Now let's talk about the highest edition of QuickBooks Online, which is QuickBooks Online Advanced. One of the most noticeable differences is it jumps from 5 users to up to 25 users. So if you got more than 6 people that need more than 6 people or more that need to be accessing QuickBooks Online, you definitely want to start looking at QuickBooks Online Advanced, because that gives you up to 25 users. In addition to that, they have a built-in bill payment feature. So it actually connects to a third-party app that processes payments, so you can pay your vendors, you can pay your suppliers, all electronically within the within the QuickBooks ecosystem, so you don't have to go into your bank and create a bill payment separately. So that's actually a really cool feature. You also have access to additional, more powerful reports. QuickBooks Online partners with third-party report makers to give you access to reports that you wouldn't have access with the other edition. So you would have to pay extra a third-party app to have those very special management and operating reports. You can get access to that with QuickBooks Online Advanced with the highest edition. You also have access to these feature called accelerated invoicing, which allows you to import invoices from Excel or a CSV file and also create invoices to multiple clients in batch. And lastly, because you have more than 5 users, you got potentially 25 users using QuickBooks Online, you have custom user permission. So you can tell QuickBooks Online what each person has access to or not have access to give you a little bit more control about what these users are doing inside QuickBooks Online. Let's go ahead and start a free trial. So you can actually start a free trial without even putting a credit card in and start using it right away. Just make sure that you put your credit card in before the 30 days are up, so you can get that 50% discount if you use my link. Let's go ahead and create a new account and then click on sign up with email. This will immediately start the new account setup process. It would be with a free trial. You don't have to put a credit card yet, but obviously make sure you put a credit card in before the 30 days are up if you are going to continue using the account. So let's go ahead and put the business legal name. So let's call this one Garcia Enterprises, and we'll call this one Accounting Services. And then I'm going to go ahead and click on next. Then it's asking me, what would you like to do with QuickBooks? I'm just going to click on next and skip this part and answer only the stuff that's relevant. So do you have employees? I'm going to put no for now. However, QuickBooks does have an additional option where you can add payroll services to it, which we're not going to cover in this video because payroll is way too complicated to discuss, but you're going to watch other videos for payroll. Now I'm going to click on owner here because I'm going to tell it that I'm the owner of the business, and then put no, that I'm going to do it all myself and don't have an accountant. And the reason why they ask you that is because they're going to want to connect you with an accounting professional that's an expert in the subject matter to improve the probabilities of you doing this correctly. Then it's asking you if you want to link your bank accounts so you can download transactions automatically. For now, I'm going to uncheck that or just click on manually and click on all set, and I'm going to show you how to do the bank connection a little bit later on. So now we have our new QuickBooks Online account set up. We have the name of the company here. If I click on my company name, I can upload a logo by just clicking on the logo box in the top and just clicking on the plus sign, and I can upload my logo. I would say that's a pretty good start. Let's start uploading our logo and then click save. At this point, you can change the legal name. So we're going to call this one Garcia Enterprises Corp. You can add your EIN. You can add the type of business that you have. So right here where it says tax form, you can say, okay, I am a corporation, an LLC, whatever you happen to be. And you can change the industry if you want to. But at this point, that doesn't really matter whether you put the wrong industry or not. So now I'm going to click on save and then click on done. And that would be sort of my initial setup. We got our logo in, we got our company name in, and we can move on and start doing the other basic functions that we do to do the initial setup. So right now, let's talk about navigation. Let's just get an idea for what is it that we're looking at. On the left-hand side, this is called the left navigation bar. On the left navigation bar, you will have access to different areas of QuickBooks. Transactions, which has banking; expenses, which has all your vendor information and expenditures; sales, which is where you're going to have all your product services; and invoices for your customers; projects, which is for that project job costing, that job profitability tracking; workflows, that's only available in the advanced edition, and that's to create some automation processes. We're not going to cover that in today's video. We'll have other advanced videos that cover that. Then we have payroll, which we mentioned we're going to skip for this video too. We have reports, and then we have taxes, which is going to be both for sales tax and payroll taxes. If you have payroll tax set up, you're going to have mileage, where you can track your miles; accounting, where you can do your chart of accounts; and reconcile and my accountant. If you have an accountant connected with QuickBooks Online, this is where you can have all that information about the accountant that's connected to your file that's collaborating with you. So that's the left navigation bar. Now you're going to see the three little horizontal lines next to your company name and next to the QuickBooks logo. If I click on that, my left navigation bar collapses. And basically what this does is gives you a little bit more real estate to work with. So if you don't need to be working on any of those transactions on the left navigation bar, you can collapse or click again and you can't expand. If you happen to be in any screen and you're kind of lost and you're like, I'm not sure where I am, you can click on the QuickBooks logo on the top left and it will send you back into sort of your home page or overview page. So here on the left hand side, you're going to have overview or dashboard, depending on what version of QuickBooks you have. Most people would say dashboard. Since I have the advanced edition, I also have the overview that gives me additional information. So that dashboard is going to be the home page for most people. In the dashboard, I can hide anything I don't want to see just by clicking on hide. And also if I happen to be, let's say, in Starbucks and I'm looking at reports and I'm looking at this screen and I don't want anybody to kind of see my numbers, I can click on privacy here in the top right and it will hide the graphs in the dashboard. They call it Starbucks mode. So we can click on that again and then we can see our graphics. So these graphics are going to show me a summary of my profit and loss, expenses, bank account balances, etc. Since it's a brand new account and we don't have any information, obviously everything here is a zero, but as we create some transactions, you will see exactly how that works. Now let's take a look at on the right hand side. On the top right, you're going to see three buttons here that are really important. One is the gear menu, and then when I click on the gear menu, you're going to have all sorts of options. In the gear menu, you're going to have some really important things such as account and settings. If you click on that, it's going to take you back into your account and settings screen that I was on when I was adding the company logo. On the left hand side, we're going to have multiple tabs. For example, billing and subscription will tell you the edition of QuickBooks that you have. It will tell you whether or not you're in a trial or in a subscription. It will let you know when the next month is for your billing cycle, and it allows you to either cancel your trial, upgrade, or downgrade your plan depending on the edition that you have. You actually have the capacity to do that, and you also have your company ID, which you're going to need for support purposes. Now, if you have payroll add-on or T-sheets or QuickBooks bookkeeping services or online payments, or you want to order check-in supplies, all this screen gives you all that information, whether or not you have it set up or not, or how you would go about setting up those add-ons. When you click on usage, it lets you know how many users you have, how many accounts you have, that sort of information. When you go to sales, you're going to see all sorts of preferences that you can turn off and on in terms of sales. So if you want to go through this and see all the things you can tweak, turn on and off, that will give you an idea more or less of the features that you have available in QuickBooks Online. When I click on expenses, you have a couple of options here. For example, if I want to turn on purchase orders, I just click on the little checkbox and click on turn on purchase orders and click on save. And then I'm going to go into advanced and I'm going to say, for example, I wanted to change whether or not I want to enable account numbers. So I have the option to turn them off or on in this case. So I'm going to go ahead and turn them on and show them. And then whether or not I want to turn on class and locations. I'm going to go ahead and turn them on for now. I'm going to show you kind of how those work. Again, those are only available in Plus or Advanced, not available in Simple Start or Essentials. As we go down here, we can turn off and on projects. So if we want to track project job costing or job profitability reports, I'm going to go ahead and click on projects and turn that on, and then click on OK. And then I can turn off and on multi-currency if I want to have multi-currency. One thing is, if you turn on multi-currency, you can't turn it off. You also have a user view that says business view versus accountant view. So under accountant view, you get a little bit of more the accounting terminology. If you're not an accountant or don't understand accounting at all, you probably want to use the business view, which will be a little bit more business friendly terminology. I'm going to go ahead and click on done. And then that's just a quick overview of the settings. When I click on the gear menu again, you're going to see other places like manage users. So under manage users, this is where you create more users. So if you want more people to be accessing QuickBooks Online in your organization, you can do that. As I mentioned earlier, Essentials gives you access to 3, Plus gives you access to 5, and Advanced, which is the one that I have on, gives you access to 25. So when I click on Add User, I can now add the type of role that I want. So the user can either be an admin or a standard user. Now you can also create report-only users and time tracking users. As I mentioned earlier, all versions of QuickBooks Online give you the ability to, as I mentioned earlier, only the Plus edition and the Advanced edition give you the unlimited reports and time tracking users, and only the Advanced edition gives you the ability to create custom roles. So for example, I'm going to click on Add New, and I'm going to create a role where the users can only access invoices, bills, and let's say inventory management. So I'm limiting what this user can access. Basically, anything that's not marked here, that user will not have access to. So then I'm going to click on Next, and I'm going to call this my assistant, and then click on Save. So now I created a user that has limited access to only certain areas. I can put their name here. So Carlos Garcia. Okay, and then click on Save, and then that person is now going to get an email with an invitation to sign up to QuickBooks Online. And when that person signs up, they're going to have a limited access to QuickBooks. If I click on roles here, and then I see assistant, I can click on the drop down where it says edit or view, and I can actually see what that person has access to. So you get really, really robust user permissions when you're using the Advanced edition. If you're working with Essentials or Plus, you can have additional users, but you can't really choose the stuff that they have access to or not. So it's a little bit of an all or none type of situation. Okay, so that's that. So I'm going to click on the gear menu, and then we're going to see here where it says chart of accounts. Now you can also access a chart of accounts through the accounting tab on the left navigation bar. So I can click on accounting and then click on see chart of accounts. So either way, whether I go to accounting, chart of accounts, or if I click on the gear menu, chart of accounts, I'll get to the chart of accounts. This is probably one of the places that you're going to spend a lot of time in creating new accounts at the very beginning. Chart of accounts is the heart of your accounting system. If you're starting a business from scratch, it's going to get a lot easier because you can just kind of create the accounts as the transactions come up. But if your business has already been created before and you started using QuickBooks Online, whenever you pick a date, you're going to have carryover balances coming from before. So as you create all the accounts in your chart of accounts, you have to enter those beginning balances. Let's start, for example, with the premise that I'll be setting up QuickBooks Online on July 1st. So I want to tell QuickBooks that as of June 30th, I had a carryover balance on that specific account that I'm going to create. So I'm going to click on the new on the top right side, and then click on where it says bank type. I'm going to click on bank, and then let's call this one Chase Checking 1, 2, 3, 4, and then let's say that's the last 4 digits of my checking account. You can name these whatever you want. I like to use the last 4 digits of the checking account. Here where it says detail type, you can select additional detail type to give you a little bit more information. Keep in mind that if you change the detail type, the name will be changed, so be aware of that. And then I'm going to click on where it says here, when do you want to start tracking finances in this account? So for example, like I said, I'm going to start tracking it July 1st. So I want to enter the beginning balance on June 30th. So I'm going to click on other and then pick the hard date, the actual date in which I'm going to enter the beginning balances for. So let's say I'm starting on July 1st. So I'm telling it that my balance on June 30th is going to be X amount. Matter of fact, let me push this up to July 1st. Really, that would make a lot more sense if I put July 1st, because then there we go. Then my ending balance here is for 6/30. So I'm going to go into my bank statement and actually pull up my ending balance from June 30th. And let's say that's 32,560. Okay, perfect. So I'm going to go ahead and click Save and Close. And then you're going to notice that my chart of accounts is now getting constructed. So I got my checking account and the beginning balance. Let's say I'm also going to bring a credit card. So I'm going to click on New, Account Type. I'm going to choose Credit Card. And then let's say this is an Amex. So we'll do Amex 1001. And here where it says I'm going to start tracking my finances. Let's say the Amex closes the 24th of each month. So I'm going to put here other. And let's say starting June 25th will be the kind of the first day that I'll start tracking that. And the reason why I'm going a little bit back is because credit cards don't have a perfect close date like banks do. Then I'm going to read from my credit card statement what my ending balance for that credit card is. And let's say it's 16,789. And then I'm going to click on Save and Close. So we got started, right? We got our bank account, we got our credit card account. If I have multiple bank accounts, you want to create them all. If you have multiple credit cards, you want to create them on. A little bit more advanced situation is you want to create your other balances, such as loans. So I'm going to click on New here. And let's say, for example, I have a business loan. So I'm going to go to Account Type and choose Long-Term Liability. Let's say it's a 10-year business loan I have with the bank. I'm going to pick here where it says Note Payable. Okay, that makes sense. And then here I'm going to put Chase Loan. And I'll put the last 4 digits of the loan number. You don't have to do that. I like to do that. And let's say I can get my loan statement closing on June 30th as well. So I'm going to go ahead and put the loan balance there. So let's say that's 41,552. Now, one thing to keep in mind here is a lot of people will set up QuickBooks Online closer to the beginning of the year, and they would pick maybe a January 1st start date and manually enter all the transactions through the beginning of the year to whatever date you are creating this in. That's good. That's valid. A lot of people do that because they want to have QuickBooks have a clean fiscal year. So when they prepare the tax returns, they have one QuickBooks file with all the information. You can do that as well. So you don't have to start this exactly the start date on when you're creating the new QuickBooks Online account. You can actually go back to the beginning of the year and recreate all those transactions if you want to. So that's really up to you. So you're going to be creating all the accounts here. You can also create your asset account. So for example, let's say I'm going to enter a vehicle and I'm going to pick here, let's say a vehicle. And then let's say I have a Ford truck. So let's put here Ford truck, and I kind of know what I'm doing, and I know the balance of my Ford truck when I bought it. So let's say, for example, I bought the Ford truck for $31,000 on, let's say this happened on July 1st, 2018. And then I'm going to click on track depreciation of the asset. And then it's going to ask me how much depreciation is there on this vehicle. So then at that point, you would probably have to talk to your accountant, read the tax return and see how much depreciation you've done to date. So let's say that's $6,000. And we'll put here, it would be 630. So 630. 2020. So following kind of the same cycle here. So I bought it originally for $31,000. I have depreciated to date $6,000. Again, this is kind of an advanced option. If you don't know what you're doing, you probably want to skip that. Wait until you speak to your accountant about fixed assets and depreciation. I'm just illustrating the things that you can put in the chart of accounts. So that's going to be your balance sheet accounts. Now in the profit and loss accounts or your income and expense accounts, you can also create additional categories. So for example, I have 1, 2, let's go back to that again, 1, 2, 3 income categories. QuickBooks by default creates billable expense income, uncategorized income, and sales. You don't have to use all of them. These are the default accounts. But let's say, for example, I have two types of revenue channel. I have product sales and I have services, and I want to track them differently. So at that point, I would create those two categories. So account type, let's go to income, and on the detail type, we'll select sales of product income, and that's perfect. I don't have to change anything to that. Notice that I can't put beginning balances because income and expense accounts, we don't do beginning balances for. That's only for balance sheet accounts, credit cards, loans, assets, uh, bank accounts, that sort of thing. So I'm going to go ahead and click on Save and New so I can continue to create more accounts. And then I'm going to be in the same screen here, in the income screen. And let's call this Sales of Product. Let's change the name. Sales of Products. Okay, so this is going to be our account called Sales of Products. Actually, let me go back here for a second, make sure I didn't screw this up. Okay, so we have, let's refresh here, and let's see what income accounts we have. Okay, so we have sales of product income and sales of product. Okay, so I did this twice by mistake. So perfect, because I get to show you how to edit an account. So I'm going to change the name of this account to sales of services. So I'm going to click on edit, and then I'm going to change the detail type to, let's say, service fee income. And I call this one sales for services or service sales. Okay, that's probably better. Let's do service sales. Beautiful. Then I'm going to click on save and close. So now I got multiple income categories that I'll be using: sales of products and sales of services. Same thing happens with the expense accounts. So I got an account called car and truck expenses, but let's say I want to have subcategories under car and truck expenses. So I'm going to create a couple of subcategories under car and truck. So I'm going to click on new, and then I'm going to select the expense category, and then I'm going to go to detail type, and we're going to choose car and truck here somewhere. It's called auto, perfect. And then we're going to call this one fuel. And then we're going to make fuel a sub account. So we're going to click on the little checkbox, make it a sub account of car and truck, perfect. And then I'm going to click on save and new. Okay. And let's do one for tolls. And then we'll make that a sub account of car and truck, save and new. Let's do parking, sub account of, let's say, what was it, car and truck, yep. And then go to new, and let's do auto lease. So let's say we lease our vehicle and we want to have a category for those lease expenses. So we're going to go to car and truck and go to auto lease, and then click on save and close. And let's say those are it. So I'm going to go down here to my car and truck expenses, and notice that I have 4 subcategories under it. So you can create parent categories, you can create subcategories depending on your preference. Again, if you're brand new to accounting, this is something that might be easier to do sitting with your accountant next to you. Right? I know the chart of accounts part is a little bit dense. I'll have other videos where I go a little bit deeper and kind of slower into the chart of accounts and setting up all these beginning balances. That's a really important fundamental part of QuickBooks Online, and probably the one that everybody needs to learn first when they're getting started. So we spend a lot of time with that. Let's move over to now products and services. So right here under the sales tab on the left hand side, we're going to go to products and services, and this is where we create all the different products and services that we create. Notice that QuickBooks by default creates hours and sales as 2 default items, but here's when we can decide what kind of products and services we're going to sell. So I'm going to click on new and then create a service. So I'm going to create a service here, and then let's call this one consulting. Okay, so let's say I charge for consulting, and let's call this hourly consulting. And let's say here, when I go down a little bit, I get a couple of options like a SKU number, probably not valuable unless I'm dealing with inventory. Category, so I can create different categories and group my items together. I have class. If we're going to go back and use classes, we'll go back and talk about classes briefly. And then we have description. So here I can put hourly fee for basic consultant. Okay, so that's what I'm going to use. That's what's going to be on the invoice itself. Let's say that what I charge for consulting is $75 an hour. So I'm going to put there 75. And then income account, I'm going to click on the drop down. Going back to our chart of accounts portion, we're going to choose which is the income category that makes the most sense. So in this case, it's called service sales. That should make total sense. And let's say I don't use consulting for purchasing it from a vendor, so I'm going to leave that unchecked because I don't need to use this item for a vendor transaction. I also have the option to add a picture to the item for my own reference. The picture won't show up in the invoice, but that's optional too. And then I'm going to click on Save and Close. So that gives you an idea more or less on how to create a new product or service. I'm going to click on New and then show you something which is an inventory part. So I'm going to go ahead and turn on inventory tracking. When I click on that, it should turn on inventory. So now my QuickBooks Online is enabled for inventory. As I mentioned earlier, only Plus and Advanced Editions give you that. I'm going to click on inventory, and let's say I'm going to sell a laptop. Okay, let's say I'm in the laptop business, right? So I'm going to sell a laptop, and I'm going to skip SKU, category, and class for now. Actually, for SKU, I'm going to put the code number from the manufacturer, right? So let's say that's the code number from the manufacturer. Now, I don't have any in stock right now. If I do happen to have some in stock, as I create my QuickBooks setup from the beginning, I can enter that there. But let's say I don't have any in stock, I'll put 0. And as of date, I'm going to put the beginning of the year here. So 1/1/2020. And then reorder point, let me put 2, because basically anytime I go under 2, I want to have more in stock. That's what that means. Then it's going to ask me, what is my inventory asset account? Generally, you keep the default inventory asset account. Here we can call this one Dell laptop 123, whatever it is. And then the sales price. Let's say I sell this for $6.99, and I'm going to put sales of product income or sales of products. Okay, so I got two accounts of the same. I should probably go back to the chart of accounts and clean that up. So I'll pick sales of product. And then under the purchase, I can use the same code. This is what it's going to look like when I purchase it. But let's say that when I purchase it, I want to give some additional codes to my vendor. So I'm going to put additional data that my vendor needs to see. When I buy this, I buy it for $500. Then it's going to ask me what is going to be my expense account. Typically, the default cost of goods sold account works just fine. And for preferred vendor, I'll create a vendor called Dell, because let's say that's who I'm buying them from. So I'll just create kind of the vendor on the fly and then click on Save and Close. So we successfully created a service item called Hourly Consulting and a product called Laptop that has a sort of an internal code, a cost, and a sales price. So we created our accounts. Now we created our products. Now let's talk about creating customers. So I'm going to go into sales and click on customers. So let me create my first customer. I'm going to click here where it says add customer manually. And let's say my customer is called ABC Corporation. Let's say they're a business. And then here I can enter their address. I can enter notes, tax ID information, billing terms or payment terms in this case, language if I want the invoice to be in any other language. I can add attachments, so like contracts and stuff like that, and custom fields if I want to track custom fields. Now, custom fields are only available in the advanced edition of QuickBooks, and then we have additional information where I can have customer type. I can create different customer types, so I can group my customers together. So tons of information we can load in here. For now, we'll just leave everything else blank and click on Save. So there's my customer created. If I go into customers, I'm going to have a list of all my customers there. Same thing with vendors or suppliers. When I click on expenses, I can click on the drop down where it says suppliers, and then I can click on new vendor. QuickBooks calls suppliers vendors, and let's say this is going to be, let's say, Chevron. Okay, Chevron is a supplier because when I buy gas, I buy it from Chevron. And you also can load all sorts of information for the vendor, such as email if I'm going to send them a purchase order, such as phone numbers, billing rates, terms, opening balance if you owe them money from before, account number, information you can have an account number with your vendor, default expense category. So in this case, I'll put fuel in this case, tax ID if you're going to give them a 1099, attachments, notes, etc. So then I'm going to click on Save. So there we go. We got the original Dell vendor I created and the new Chevron vendor I created. So you know how to create chart of accounts, products and services, vendors and customers. That's the most fundamental part of setup. Now let's talk about transactions. When I click on the new menu on the left navigation bar, this is where we can create all of our transactions. So I can go into purchase order, for example, and I can create a purchase order for Dell. Let's say I want to buy some laptop. So I'm going to go into Dell, and then I'm going to go down here into product or service, click on the drop down menu, and pick my item from my product and services list. Let's say I'm going to order 10 of them from Dell, and it's $500, and we'll go ahead and click on save and close, and that would be my purchase order. I can now receive my purchase order by clicking on new and then clicking on bill. So now we are receiving the inventory. I type Dell here on the left hand side. You're going to notice on the right hand side a drawer slides in telling you, hey, we got open POs available. Don't create a bill from scratch. Would you like to use an open PO? And then we're going to click on add and add that in there. So now if there's a change to the price, maybe we thought it was 500 but ended up being 510, we can change it at that point. It changes the bill, and this is the amount that I plan to pay my vendor in the future. Let me go ahead and click save and close, and that takes care of that. I can also enter bills for things that I expect to pay in the future, not related to purchase orders. For example, I'm going to click on new and then click on bill, and let's say I'm going to pay Xfinity. Okay, that's my payroll service, my cable service. So I'm going to click on add and click on save. That creates a new vendor. Now I'm also going to say I received this bill on June 1st, and they're giving me 15 days to pay. Automatically, you're going to see the due date automatically populate. Under bill number, I'm going to copy that from the invoice number they sent me. And under categories, I'll put here utilities, and I can add any note I want, such as June, internet, and phone, right? Whatever you want to put in there. And then under amount, this is where you put the total dollar amount. Let's say it was $189.50. And then I'm going to click on save and close. That is a bill or an accounts payable. That's only available in Essentials, Plus, and Advanced. Now let's talk about invoicing, right? So let's say we have a new customer that we want to sell them one of those laptops and maybe some consulting. So I'm going to click on the new menu, and I'm going to click on estimate. So let's say, for example, I want the customer to approve it first. So I'll create an estimate, select my customer ABC Corporation, and then select the product and service. Let's say this is going to be the laptop, and let's say some consulting. So I'll type that in there and select it. So it's one laptop for $699, and let's say it's 3 hours of consulting. Here I can change the description to installation and setup. So the estimate and invoicing feature in QuickBooks is very powerful. Let's say the estimate is dated 6/1. At this point, I'm going to click on save and send and email it to my client. So I'll click on save and send, put my client's email in here, and then click on save and send. The next screen will give you a quick preview of what that will look like. You get to see exactly what the invoice is going to look like. You actually can modify and change the formatting of that invoice. I'm going to put a link in the description below for a long 1-hour webinar that I recorded that explains that. There's a lot of moving parts to customizing your invoices and adding the pay now button and that sort of thing. So you want to refer to that for that. So here's what the invoice looks like if the customer were to print it. In this case, an estimate actually. This is what it would look like. And you can actually choose what the subject says or the body. You can change that if you want to. Then I'm going to click on send and close, and my customer will now get an email with that information. So this is what it looks like on the customer side. They get an estimate that says, dear ABC Corporation, here's your estimate below. You get the text of the estimate transcribed in the email, and you can also click on the actual PDF and see the actual PDF if they want to print it. So now your customer at this choice can either reply via email and accept, or maybe print it and sign it and fax it to you, whatever process you have, and then kind of let you know that, let's move forward with this estimate. So at this point, you're going to go ahead and pull the original estimate. Couple ways to do that. We're going to do it the easiest way. We're going to click on sales and customers, and then we're going to click on where it says estimate. So we're going to click on the estimates, and that's going to give me a list of all the open estimates. At this point, I can click on where it says one open estimate, and it will actually pull up the estimate for you. I can just click on it and I can see it. At this point, I can modify it if it needs to be modified, add notes, or I can switch it from pending to accepted and choose the date and the person that accepted it. So let's say my customer Hector accepted it, and it was on June 15th. Okay, well, that's really cool because it kind of gives you a history of when the customer said yes to the estimate. At this point, we can just save this, and then we can convert it over to an invoice once the work is completed. So let's say I completed the work, I click on create invoice. I got the option to do partial invoice. It actually has a feature called progress invoicing that's available in Plus edition and Advanced edition. So the older editions the lower editions like Simple Start or Essentials would just go straight to the invoice. But on a Plus edition or Advanced, it allows you to kind of break it up into pieces if you want to. For now, I'm just going to click on Total. So it creates one invoice from the original estimate. So now that my invoice is created, notice I have a couple of additional options. One, I can choose to accept payments via credit card or bank transfer. That needs to be set up or configured. It's not by default because QuickBooks has to do a connection with your bank directly, and they have to kind of underwrite your business to make sure that you can get digital payments. So you can click on get set up and get that setup process, or I'm actually going to give you a link below in the description and a phone number to my direct rep over at QuickBooks, which will give you the best possible rates. Remember, they do charge a couple of percentage points for receiving credit card payments, so you want to try to get the best deal possible. So I'll give you a direct contact for that, or you can just choose to get the standard rate that every QuickBooks user gets just by doing the setup process. Anyway, once you get that set up, you can actually mark these things, and then your customer will get an invoice with a Pay Now button so they can actually pay you electronically. So if there's no modifications to the invoice, let's say we're going to add invoice date to 6/15, and we're going to give this customer 60 days to pay. Notice that the due date changes automatically based on the invoice date and the due date. Notice that the invoices also have these little lock icons under each of the lines, letting you know that this is linked to an estimate you created before. So I can do a save or a save and send, and then the customer will get an email with the Pay Now button and the ability to print the invoice. So I'm going to click on save and close, and that will be it for invoicing. Now, when I click on the new button, notice that there's all sorts of transactions. So under customers, we did estimates and we did invoices. You can also do a credit memo if you want to adjust the value of that invoice. If you don't want to change it on the invoice itself, you can do a sales receipt, which is when your customers paid you and you invoice them simultaneously and you don't want to have two separate transactions. You can also do a refund receipt if you're doing a refund, or you can do some delayed credit and delayed charges if you're tracking adjustments to the invoices throughout the month and then you want to accumulate them and invoice them all in one shot. Under vendors, you can also enter expenses. These are not bills that you're going to pay later, but expenses you're paying now. You can record checks and print those checks. You can do vendor credits, which are similar to credit memos, and you can do credit card credits if somebody refunds your credit card. Under employees, you'll be able to do payroll and timesheets, and under other, you can do bank deposits, transfers, journal entries, statements, and all sorts of other transactions such as inventory adjustment. So a very complete program that lets you do a lot of things. Now let me go ahead and receive the payment to that invoice. So I'm going to click on receive payment, and I'm going to select my customer here, and let's say I'm going to receive a partial payment. So instead of getting $924, I'm only going to get $400 worth. So I'll type $400 here, and then let's say my customer paid me via a check, and the reference number would be my customer's check number. I have that in front of me, and that went straight into my Chase credit card account. Okay, and let's say there's the invoice 1001 being applied, and notice only $400 are being applied. Perfect. So I'm going to go ahead and click on save and close, and now I have $400 in my bank account. When I click on the accounting tab and then go into chart of accounts, or click on the gear menu and click on chart of accounts, I'm going to be able to go into my actual bank register. So when I click on view register, I'm able to see my beginning balances that I started with when we first set up the account, which is the $32,000 plus the $400 that I just received. Now notice I do have a bill that I haven't paid for that I created from the purchase order. So let's go ahead and create that bill and see what happens to my bank balance. So I'm going to click on new and then click on pay bills. So under pay bills, I can choose any of the bills that I haven't paid yet. Let's say I'm going to go ahead and pay Dell for that bill, and I'm going to pay them in full, $5,100. And I'm also going to pay my Xfinity bill in full, $189. So from here, I'm able to pay my bills. If I'm paying with a check, I can put here a check number, or I can click on print later because I want to print them later on, or I can just leave that blank because let's say it's not really a check that I'm paying with. Maybe I'm paying with credit card. So if I click on the drop down menu and click on Amex, notice that the interface changes a little bit. It doesn't let you put a check number. You can also pay bills with a credit card, not necessarily a bank account. But I'm going to choose a bank account just to make sense of this. And let's say I'm paying via ACH, so I'll just type ACH there. If it's a check number, you would put the word check number. Then I'm going to click on the drop down menu and click on save and close, or click on save and print if I want to have kind of a printout of those checks that I'm paying. So I'm going to click on cancel here for a second, and now my two bills have been paid. So notice that my balance now went down because my bank is in real time reflecting the balance of all the transactions I am creating. I can also enter one-off expenses. So let's say, for example, I have a receipt in front of me for gas that I put on my vehicle. So I click on new and then click on expense. And then I can choose the bank account that I'm paying with. So in this case, it would be either my Chase or my Amex. So I'm going to pick my Chase. And let's say this expense happened on the 16th. I can choose whatever date it is, and that's going to be a Chevron. So I spend money on gas, right? So I'm going to put car and truck fuel as the category. And then here I put the dollar amount, which is $56.91. Then I'm going to go ahead and click on save and close. And that's how you enter an expense manually. So notice that you can also enter expenses for a credit card. So I'm going to go into expenses and then choose Chevron again. Let's say I put gas again, and then I click on the drop down and choose Amex because I paid this time with the Amex. And let's say this was on the 17th, and then this was also car and truck fuel, and let's say that's $41.89. And then I'm going to click on save and close. So now I'm going to go back and change from bank registered checking account. I'm going to change it to the Amex. So now we can see the beginning balance that we started with, and then we see the expenditure that we made on the 17th for $41.89, and you can kind of see that running balance there. So by doing that, you kind of saw how almost every type of transaction in QuickBooks can be created and how it interacts with the banks and the credit cards. You can also do bank transfers by clicking on other. And let's say, for example, I'm going to create a brand new savings account, and I'm going to transfer from my checking account, and I'll go ahead and create a new savings account from here. This will be the same thing as creating it from your chart of accounts. Then I'll put here savings, and let's call this one Chase savings and the last four digits. And then under beginning balance, I'm not going to put anything because I'm actually creating the beginning balance transaction through the transfer. So I'm going to click on save and close. And let's say on June 30th, I went ahead and I transferred, let's say $10,000 into my savings account. Under memo, I can put something or leave it blank, and I can just click on save and close. So now if I go into the register and I switch it from my Amex down to my second account, my savings account, I can now see the $10,000 coming in as a deposit. If I go back and change it to my checking account, I should see the $10,000 coming out as a payment. So we see the interactivity of all these accounts. Now, when I click on new, you will notice that you have other transactions here, such as journal entry, statement, and pay down credit card. Let's do a journal entry real quick to talk about how that works. And typically, if you're not an accountant or working in an accounting capacity, journal entries are a little bit challenging because it's got debits and credits. And I probably recommend that you wait until you work with your accountant if you need to do a journal entry. But a classic journal entry that we make is we're going to enter a prepaid expense and charge it against the month, or we're going to enter, let's say, depreciation and charge it against the month. So let's say we're going to use the example of depreciation. So I'm going to go here to July 31st, and let's say I want to charge $200 of depreciation to my vehicle. So I'm going to put depreciation expense is going to be the first category. The debit is an expense, and I'll put $200. And then the other account will be accumulated depreciation, or let me see if that's even here somewhere. Okay, it is. It's under where it says Ford truck. So when I click on Ford truck, notice that this is a different account. This is Ford truck colon depreciation. That means it is a subcategory under Ford truck used to track the reduction of the value of that truck. Again, if you don't know what depreciation is, you probably shouldn't be dealing with journal entries at all, probably. And then I'm going to click on save and close, and that's how you create an entry. Now, what does that do? When I go into reports, okay, and I look at my profit and loss, so I'll start by looking at a profit and loss report, and then I'm going to click here where it says this year. I'm going to click all dates just so we can see every transaction, and then click on run report. That's going to give you an idea of everything that we have done. So notice that we started by creating the sales of product of $699 from that invoice, and then the $225 consulting. Then we have a cost of goods sold, which is the cost of my laptop that I sold. Then I got my fuel expense, my utilities, and my depreciation. So that's pretty much the end goal of QuickBooks Online, is for you to create a bunch of transactions that is essentially going to give you a financial statement, like profit and loss, something that tells you how much you sold, how much your expenses were, and finally what your profit or your net income is. Let's go and create another transaction. I'm going to click on new, and then click on invoice, and then create a new customer. Let's go to add new, and let's create Carlos Perez, and click on save. And let's say I'm going to save Carlos 2 laptops. I'm going to sell him 2 laptops, and I'm going to give him a discount. So instead of $699, we'll charge him $649, and we'll also charge him maybe 2 hours of consulting. And we'll put here set up each laptop about an hour each, right? Pretty simple stuff, right? You add the comments of the stuff that you want your customer to see. Notice I skipped the estimate process. I went straight to invoice, which is okay. I'm choosing the date of the invoice, and then click on save or save and send if I want to email it to my client. So I'm going to go ahead and close that, and then take a look at my profit and loss report. I'm going to do all dates again and click on run report so we can see our sales are going up now. So we got sales of product, and we see our cost of goods sold, and we see our expenses. So this pretty much tells you how QuickBooks works and functions. Now, there's a really, really awesome feature called classes or locations. What that allows you to do is allows you to split up your financial statement into different, let's call it cost centers or different categories. So you can go not just income and expenses, you can also go by class or location. So here it says display columns by. I'm going to choose classes and then click on run report. So now you can see how this financial statement could potentially be split up into 2. So for example, let's say I'm going to go into each of those invoices and add a class now. So I'm going to click here, and I'm going to click on one of the invoices, and then here where it says class, which we ignored before, I'm not going to use classes to track whether I'm selling it to companies or to individuals. So let's say ABC Corporation is companies. So I'm going to click on the drop down here and then click on companies. So I'm creating a class called companies, and I'll do the same thing with the second line. You have to add a class to each line, and you could do them separately if you wanted to, but within this context, it makes sense to put the same. Then I'm going to click on save, and then I'll go ahead and close this out. And I'm going to go to the other invoice here. Okay. And then on this one, I'm going to put, I don't have the class yet. So I'll go to new and put individuals, and then click on save. And then same thing for the other class. I'm going to go ahead and click on save, and I'll close that and go back to my profit and loss report. And notice that now I have my sales and cost of goods sold based on each class. So it really does add some nice dimensions of information to my financial statements. I must make sure I do the same thing with my expenses so they fit into the right class. This works the same way. I'm going to click on that if you want to track it by location. But location is a little bit different, because when you click on location drop down, notice that you don't do locations per line item. Location is for the entire transaction. So you get to pick and choose whether or not you want to use locations or classes to track your transactions and give that additional dimension of information. So let's say, for example, I have an office in New York and an office in Florida, and I want to know where I'm selling these things from. So I'm going to go ahead and save that one and go back and change the other one. And let's say, okay, that's that one. Let me go ahead and change the other invoice. Where is it? Right here. And then let's say this one was sold from the Florida location. So just like classes, you will have the ability to have that additional dimension of information just like classes, you'll be able to have that additional dimension of information into your report. So I'm going to go back into my profit and loss report. So I'm going to click on reports and then profit and loss. And then I'm going to do here all dates. And then where it says columns by, I'm going to click on locations and then click on run report. Now I have another video where I go into great detail on how to modify and customize reports inside QuickBooks Online. That required a whole another video just because there's a lot of moving parts when it comes to that. But at least you know kind of the basics. You got a profit and loss, you got a balance sheet, and you know that stuff. It's available in QuickBooks Online. So I can also separate these by locations or classes. In this case, the dimensions are within the same because we only have those two transactions, but that gives you an idea more or less how that works. Now let's move on to banking, which is kind of the big thing that people want to use, which is they want to connect their banks to QuickBooks to automate the data entry. So all the things that we entered here, such as invoices and payments to the invoices, that might not be automated, but expenses like those credit card charges, that can. So we're going to connect the bank. So I'm going to click on transactions or banking on the left-hand side and then click on banking. Then you should have a button that says connect or new or something like that. In this case, it says connect account. I'm going to click on connect account. Then I'm going to search my bank in the search screen or select it if it's one of the big banks and click on that. Then I click on continue. And at this point, it will ask you to enter the credentials of your bank. So you got to go through the process of entering the credentials and authorizing your login so QuickBooks can download those transactions. So once you enter the credentials and you start connecting, QuickBooks will start connecting the banks and downloading the transactions for you. It will give you a list or a choice of all the accounts that you can choose, and you're going to choose your banks and your credit card accounts if you have multiple accounts set up. You're going to connect each of the accounts to whatever account in your chart of accounts if you have already previously set this up. So let's say, for example, this account should connect to my checking account, and this first one should connect to a new account that I haven't created yet. And I'm going to call this one Chase Credit Card and put the last 4 digits. Now keep in mind I have another video where I go into great detail on bank connection for credit cards because it does get a little bit confusing on when you connect a credit card that has multiple users or multiple sub accounts. So you might want to watch that video in the description below that explains that particular piece. All the way in the bottom it'll say, when would you like to start downloading transactions as of? So you can pick a specific date to, from when you would like those transactions to be downloaded. If you're starting on July 1st, obviously you're going to put here July 1st, 2020. If you want to download maybe the entire year and you're in the middle of 2020, then you put 01/01 2020. So really depending on how far back you want to go in downloading transactions, because you're going to have to be entering all of them or classifying those expenditures. So I'm going to pick 1/1/2020 and then click on connect. Now, some people are not going to be able to connect their bank to QuickBooks the way I did it because maybe their bank doesn't have that functionality yet, or if it does, there might be a limited number of transactions or how far back you can go to download transactions. So you can go in the bank account, you could try going into your bank's online login and try to see if they have a portal where you can just do a data download. For example, I can actually choose the date range of transactions that I want to download in my bank's website directly. So let's say, for example, I want to download from January 1st, 2020 through May 31st, 2020. And you can pick any date range really if the bank allows you to pick by date range, and you click on download. And then back in QuickBooks, there's going to be a button that says link account or link bank. If you click on the drop down menu, there's actually an option that says upload from file. So if you couldn't do the direct connection and you had to manually download the file, you can just do it this way. And then we can click on browse. Select the file that you downloaded, and then you click on open. And then you're going to click on next. Then it's going to ask you which bank account would you like to connect with your manual download. You click on the drop down menu where all your bank accounts are, select that, and then click on next. And that will be the alternative way of downloading transactions to the bank. Keep in mind that if you do it manually like this, if you can't do the direct connection, you must continuously upload the transactions manually. It's best that you work with a bank that does have the direct connection where you just put the username and password and let QuickBooks download the transactions every night. But even if you're working with maybe an older, a smaller bank that doesn't connect to QuickBooks, that could be an alternative. All right, so we got the banks connected. I got my bank account here on the left-hand side and the credit card on the right-hand side. Don't pay too much attention to what it says here where it says bank balance. And in QuickBooks, that stuff will kind of solve itself out once you enter all the transactions and finally reconcile the bank account. So I'm going to click here on my credit card so we can start adding some transactions from our bank download. So you will notice as soon as I scroll down, you're going to see a whole bunch of transactions from January 1st, which was that initial date that I told that I wanted to download transactions from. And you're going to see under description basically what the bank or the credit card, it's telling QuickBooks who you bought or who you made that transaction with. Now these initially are cleaned up vendor names. I actually like clicking on the gear menu here on the right hand side and change this to show bank details because it gives me the true information that's coming from the bank, and it's avoiding QuickBooks trying to clean up the name for me. Sometimes when QuickBooks cleans up the names, it's just plainly wrong. So one thing to just keep in mind. Also, you'll see that payee is empty. That's because you have to create your vendor list or create your supplier list. We're going to do that all on the fly from banking. And here where it says category or match, QuickBooks will attempt to categorize the transactions in your behalf. Now, this doesn't mean it's correct. As a matter of fact, you should assume that's incorrect, and it is your job to give it the correct category. So I'm going to click on the three little lines here on the top left so I can collapse that left navigation bar and get a little bit more real estate here when navigating the banking. I'm going to zoom out a little bit so it looks a little bit more comfortable. So I'm going to click on the first one, and it gives me three options: categorize, match, or record a transfer. I have a video, I'll put it in the description below. There's a comprehensive video that talks about online banking. This screen is actually very, very potentially complex and feature rich. And if you learn how to use it correctly, you're going to do really great things when it comes to categorizing transactions in QuickBooks Online. But right now, we'll just do a couple of simple transactions here. So I want to create the vendor. I'm going to call it Shake Shack. Okay, notice it's not in my database, so it gives me the little pencil asking me to add it. So I'm going to click on add, and that will create it either as a vendor, customer, or employee. Generally speaking, expenses are always going to be a vendor. So I'm going to click on save. And then here where it says category, meals and entertainment, it chose it for me. Is it right? Is it wrong? That would be up to you to decide. Okay, that could be travel, that could be meals and entertainment, depending on the context of your business and the specific transaction. Then you got the option to choose a location or a class. If you have those things turned on, remember that QuickBooks Online Simple Start and Essentials don't have those two options. So that's totally optional if you're working with QuickBooks Plus or QuickBooks Advanced, because you want to track those things as well. Then When you're done with this, you can click here where it says add, and it will add the transaction. Notice that you have the option to click on add attachment, and you can upload a receipt. So if I happen to have a receipt saved in my computer somewhere, I can upload it and attach it to that transaction. That's a great thing. So I can always go back, click on that, and view that receipt. So I'm going to go ahead and click on add, and that will create that transaction, that one transaction, into my books. Now I'm going to click on description. So it's going to basically reorganize it or resort it by vendor name or by the payee. And then we're going to notice that we have several that are repeated. So for example, all these 7-Elevens are essentially the same thing. So I'm going to select them all. I'm going to select all 4. I'm going to click on update. And then under category, we're going to call this 7-Eleven. So I am going to create the vendor or the payee. Sorry, that's in the wrong place. That's going to be under payee. So I'll type 7-Eleven. So under payee, I'll create that as a vendor, very important. And then under category, let's put that under fuel. Let's say I'm paying fuel at 7-Eleven. I'll skip class and location for now. And then I'm going to click on apply and accept. And that will basically enter all those 4 transactions in one shot. You also see a couple of really cool things like a search box. So if I wanted to search only Adobe and press enter, it will narrow down and only show me that particular vendor. Here where it says all transactions, I can look at the ones that are matched, categorized, transferred, or rule applied. Again, you need to watch the intensive video I have on banking feeds to understand all that terminology, because there's a lot of moving parts. Here on the right hand side, you see a couple more options like enable editable date field, groups. This is pretty cool. If you click on groups, it will group the transactions based on payee. So it actually makes it a lot easier to read. So QuickBooks will attempt to group them together in a smart way. That way, once you're looking at them, you see them as a whole. And sometimes it gives you a lot more context in terms of what that potentially can mean. And depending on which version of QuickBooks Online you have, these options might be enabled or disabled. So typically on the higher end versions, you're going to see a lot more features here where it comes to banking. I personally love QuickBooks Online bank feeds. I think that's probably one of the things that makes QuickBooks Online truly great. So I want you to study that in depth, especially when it comes to matching existing transactions, because there's just a lot of moving parts when it comes to that. Now up here, you can click on rules, and this is where you can create explicit rules for QuickBooks to do categorization automatically. So for example, if I click on new rule, and I'm going to call this Adobe, and I'm going to say Adobe is going to be office supplies, and the payee, I'll create a new payee called Adobe, and I'm going to create that as a new vendor. So basically I'm creating a rule that says, hey, if the word Adobe shows up in the description, let me type it here again. If the word Adobe shows up in the description, automatically categorize this as an expense, make it office supplies, and put that payee name into it. So once I click on save, you will notice that now the rule is explicitly created. It's in the artificial intelligence of QuickBooks, let's call it that. And then once I go back into banking, just click on banking, you're going to notice that those Adobe transactions, I'm going to click on description again to sort it. Notice that they are automatically recategorized by rule, and they're in green, letting you know that it's following a specific rule you set up. So that's actually really cool as well. Once you click on receipts, you have a different workflow here. So if you happen to have an actual physical receipt or a bill, you have 2 choices. One, you can upload it here in this platform. So you click on browse to upload, select your bill, upload it. QuickBooks will try to recognize as much of it as possible, and then I'll walk you through the process of creating that transaction. Or also you can register your email, and then basically you can email yourself those documents. And if you email them to a special email that's here in QuickBooks, you email them from that email address, they will show up on the screen and again walk you through the process of categorizing them. So that's an important, really important piece, which is banking. Now finally, once you're done entering all the bank transactions, matching the bank transactions, and you don't have anything else pending in here, you can finally then go reconcile your bank. So that's kind of the final step. So to reconcile your bank, you're going to click on the gear menu, top right, and then you're going to click on where it says reconcile. right here under Tools, Reconcile. You're going to click on that. We're going to click on Get Started. Then we're going to select the bank account we want to reconcile. So let's say we're going to reconcile our checking account. And then we're going to put the ending balance of, in this case, the following month. So we started on July 1st. So we're probably going to reconcile up to, let's say, July 31st. So let's say we're reading our bank statement. It's going to be, let's say, 21,000. We're going to put here the ending balance and the ending date, 7/31/2020. Click on Start Reconciling. And then you're going to go through all the debits, all the credits, all the deposits, all the checks, all the withdrawals, all the money coming in and coming out, and you're going to check it against your check register, and you're going to be marking them all. Finally, by the end, you're done marking all of them. You should have a difference of 0. If you don't have a difference of 0, that means you didn't finish your reconciliation. I have a different video about reconciling, which goes a bit comprehensive into this topic, so check it on the description below. Again, we can't cover everything in detail, as the purpose of this video is kind of to show overall everything that is inside QuickBooks. Finally, let's quickly talk about projects or job costing, because it's, in my opinion, one of my favorite things inside QuickBooks Online. So I'm going to click on the projects, and then right now there's no project created. So I'm going to click on Start Project, and what this will allow me to do is allows me to create a project under a current customer. So I'm going to call it Project X, and then under Customer, I'll select my customer. So let's say it's going to be under ABC Corporation. I can add some notes if I want to, like due on 12/31/2020, whatever notes you want to put in there. And then I finally created a project. So under my customer, now officially I have a project. And the purpose of the project is so you can take expenditures and assign them to the project. So then at the end, you can know what your job profitability is or what your project profitability is. So let's go back into transactions here and go into banking and kind of show you what that workflow will look like. Then I'm going to take, let's say, one of these expenditures. I'm going to create my vendor here. Okay, and then click on Add and create that as a vendor. And then let's make the assumption that that expenditure I made because I was working on that specific project. So I'm going to click here where it says Customer Project and select Project X. So now what I'm doing is I'm not only categorizing the transaction under the vendor, the supplier, under the category, potentially under location or class if you have those options turned on, but I'm assigning them to the project itself. Now, if I want to charge my customer for this or get reimbursed, I would click on Billable. Again, I'll have a different video explaining billable expenses, because that's a whole nother ballgame. Dealing with time entries and billable expenses, that's a whole nother ballgame. So we'll explain that in another video. Check the description for that. But I'm just showing you really quickly how we can take an expenditure and assign it to a project. So I click on Add, and I effectively did that. Now let me look at just maybe a bigger dollar amount and assign that. So let's take this thing here. We'll call this Tax Act. Add that as a vendor, and let's say that category is fine, office supplies and software. And under customer project, I'm gonna also add it to Project X. So I effectively added 2 expenditures to that project. I'm gonna go ahead and click on Add. While I'm at it, I'm gonna quickly just create an estimate for the project. So I'm gonna click on Estimate, and I'm gonna select my project from my drop-down list. Okay, it's not showing there yet, so let me just refresh. So hopefully once I refresh, my my project should show up in there. There we go. So I'm going to click on project, and let's select here consulting, and let's say that this consulting project was going to be for 20 hours at $75, and then I'm going to go ahead and click on save and close. So effectively I have an estimate. I haven't charged my customer yet, but I know how much I plan to charge. So now I can go into projects, and I can see all the projects I have open. So you can notice right here that Project X, I've already accumulated $1,700 worth of cost. So really clear in there. If I click here on options, I can mark the project as completed, cancel it, delete it, edit the project if I want to. I don't have any income yet. I don't have any profit because I haven't converted that estimate into an invoice. Let's say I'm going to go ahead and do that. So I'm going to go to New and create an invoice, select Project X, and then I'm going to click on Add on the right hand side where the drawer is showing me all my open estimates. So I'm going to go ahead and add invoice for the whole amount. And then I'm going to click on save and close. And because my expenses are bigger than the income, that my sales, I actually have a negative profit margin. So it's really, really clearly telling me what I'm making or not making in the project itself. After clicking on the project, I can see more details, so I can break it down and see here, okay, so that $1,700 is going some to meals and entertainment, some to office supplies and software. You can also add your payroll costs into the project. I'm gonna have another video that explains that, because that's kind of a really detailed step-by-step process in which you add your payroll costs in there, but I'm going to put the link to that in the description below for that. In this screen, while I'm looking at the details, I can add more things. I can click on transactions. It's going to show me the list of all the transactions associated with that project, income and expenses, time activity. So if I did any time tracking and I'm assigning it to that project, you're going to see that in there. And then the project reports, where you can see a project profitability report that basically tells you in a report format what your net income or net profit on that report is. Finally, let's go into reports. Once I click on reports, you can have about 50 or 60 standard reports in the lower versions of QuickBooks Online with Simple Start and Essentials. But once you get into the Plus Edition and the Advanced Edition, you're going to have close to 100 reports with all these different options that you have. So you have reports like profit and loss, balance sheet, statement of cash flows, trial balances. You can have accounts receivable, aging reports, open invoice reports, unbilled charges reports for projects. You're going to have sales by customers, sales by product. You're going to have vendor reports like accounts payable, vendor balance summaries. You're going to have 1099 reports if you issue 1099, purchases by customer, by vendor, by class, by location, employee and payroll reports, and obviously accountant reports for your year-end accounting. So I'm going to go back and click on dashboard so we can kind of see what everything is looking like. We're going to get a cash flow report with this advanced edition of QuickBooks Online. You get a lot of extra really cool reports, such as cash flow reports. So you start kind of seeing what's going on with your business and your cash flow month to month. You can get your graphs based on the specific time frame. So I can do this year or last 30 days, whatever I want, and I can track exactly what's going on with my money, with my cash flow, income, and expenses. So really powerful stuff. If you've seen the video up to this point, definitely you want to subscribe to the channel, because every time there's an update to QuickBooks Online or a new feature, I'm going to be publishing those new videos. I've also already pre-published a whole bunch of videos that accompany this one that they're going to be on the description below. So you want to check those out. Maybe come back into this video often and take a look at that playlist of videos that's right under. And most importantly, look, if you been working with QuickBooks already for an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours after watching this video, and you're still confused, there's still a lot of things that QuickBooks has that you don't understand, hey, welcome to accounting. Okay, accounting is not easy. Accounting is not simple. Sometimes it takes months to master this. This entire video was what we usually charge $300 or $700 to do private training for our clients to show them how to use QuickBooks. And even just one session might not be enough. Many people hire us 2-3 times a year during the first 6 months, the first year, so they can get comfortable with their books as they use it. That is an option. You can also learn on your own, check out all the other YouTube videos. I have digital courses. We'll put the link in the description below that you can access as well if you want to learn QuickBooks Online more in depth. But it is okay for this to be tough and confusing and overwhelming, because it's accounting. It's confusing. It's a lot of work, but trust me, once you learn it, once you use it, once you fall in love with the app, you will never imagine what life was like without it. Let's put it to you that way. And then finally, if you're going to sign up for a new account, don't forget, use my link. It's on the description, so you can get that 50% discount over the 12-month period. My email is also in the description if you need to hire me for, or someone in my team for private consulting or training, we're available for that as well. Anyway, good luck, and I hope you love QuickBooks Online as much as I do. I'll see you in the next one.